Welcome to another episode of Behind the Profit podcast. My name is Andres Bernal, and today we're going to be talking about how I lost $107,000 in a flip that we did last year. And I'm going to explain what happened, all the troubles that we had, what we could have done better, what you can do better next time at the time of flipping a house. So the first thing that it's about where the house is. This house is in Newtown, Connecticut. It's actually a good market. These houses, according to data, they sell between 50 to 60 days, which is really normal. They appreciate every year 10%. We're talking about the town. And the median income here is $150,000 to $160,000. So we can say it's a very affluent neighborhood. I mean, nobody just makes $150K a year. The process of buying here, I think it was like February or March last year, 2025. My partner Jose said, hey, there's a housing auction. It's in Newtown. I'm just going to go and I'm going to be ready. So he goes and then he bids and we won the house. Basically, the way that works an auction is you go with a certified check by the bank. And then they give you register, and then they give you a number. And then basically they say, okay, this auction is going to start at $250,000, and you start going in increments typically of 1,000. So long story short, we won the house. Now, one of the things that we never tell is that there was no access to the house. So how are we going to know what is going to be the estimated repairs? Well, Jose went a day before, and the house was vacant. The house was wide open. I'm telling you, like wide open. So he went in, he checked. So he kind of knew what was the condition of the house. And that definitely helped. Well, definitely helped to see what was the repairs needed. But then once we bought an auction, we got our hard money lender. Shout out to TMD Capital. And then, we get the process. He make it very easy, 2 to 3 weeks closing. So we're ready to close. We closed. And then, we're very excited. We're about to start the project. Everything, the funding is there. We think it was a good deal. We were thinking about selling it in the summer. So actually, it's a very good season to sell houses. Oh my God. I'm going to tell you the outcome. It's hurting right now. What if you could retire in less than 10 years? Not someday, but actually 10 years. I wrote the exact roadmaps in my book, Born to Retire Young. And these are real estate strategies that I personally use to go from coming to this country with $500 to a 60-unit real estate portfolio. And every single penny goes to building schools in the Dominican Republic. So grab your copy today. Link is in the show notes. Now back to the episode. But what happened? Well, this house was very affected by a storm that it was a year ago, like a year before we bought it. And this was a storm that hit. It was all over the news. And then for some reason, that storm, obviously flooded the whole house, but brought so many rocks into the yard, into the backyard. And they were big rocks. So we knew that was going to be a big expense. We thought it was going to be $15,000. But then we forgot about one thing. After you get the rocks out, you have to level the whole yard. And I think that was a mistake that we actually did. We found out that after we got the rocks out, it took a lot of trucks. I'm talking about maybe 15 to 18 trips of 40-yard, like dump trucks, literally. And it was a mess. Now, the second mistake that we made was that we didn't know what the water table is. And this is a topic that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about water tables in Connecticut. And let me address this. And if you're seeing this on YouTube or any visual, you're going to have a better idea. But basically, below the foundation of the house, there's dirt. And below that dirt, there's water. A high water table means that the water is near the floor of let's say the basement. And we're talking about, when I say close, this house was 2 to 3 feet. There was no way to find that out. Well, we found that out. And what happens is there's two main issues. Number one, the yard, we're talking about an acre of land. When it rained, the water was so high that when it rained, the water stayed on the grass and it didn't go down because there was water underneath the dirt. So the water didn't know where to go. And That's a big problem, because what happens is if the water stays there, it creates pools. When a buyer comes in, they're going to say, what the heck? Like, there's a pool here and I don't like that. So the only way to mitigate that on the yard is by installing drainage systems. Yes, drainage systems. So we install in 1/2 acre drainage systems so the water can go all the way down, and then we drain it to a little creek that was next to it. And that was very expensive too. In addition, we couldn't get all the rocks out. So we had to kind of hide the farther rocks. So when the people come out of the house on the deck, they didn't see the farther rocks. Like it was an eyesore. So we have to install a retaining wall plus a fence on top. And again, that was expensive. One of the second mistakes that I made here was complicated house, luxurious houses. They need a little bit more experienced agents. And when I say that is my agent, he was great. He's a friend. He's a great dude. But when you have a complicated house, when I say more luxurious, the layout, it's kind of wonky. You reach a certain price points. There was a barn in the back, which I'm going to talk about that. It was more complicated. It was not your typically 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. And when you have that, you got to have agents that are experienced in the field. Why? Because anything can trigger the new buyer, and the agent has to be able to talk and have experience to talk with potential buyers. And again, my agent was great. He did a great job. We fell in the contract twice. And I think that experience matters here. And I don't have that kind of experience as being a realtor, but we hired one of the best realtors, and then she got it sold. But she got it sold at a deep discount. So let me tell you a little bit about the numbers. We bought it for $292,000, and then we had some closing costs. Let's just call it $300,000. Then after repair value was $600, and we listed it. I think it was like July or so. And then we got it on the contract the first time at $585, and then there was everything was good. But there's one thing that the buyer didn't like. There was a freaking 2x2 piece of mold that it was in the basement that I didn't see. And it was not even mold. It was like algae. And the way that is like you put the finger on it and it like swipes right away. It's not like it stayed. It's not that it was there. It was just like algae. And the buyer backed out. At that point, it was not the agent's fault. It was not the contractor's fault. It was my fault to not verify. So it is totally my fault that I missed that. Then we got months comes, people love the house. Everything was going well. So we get, I think a month or two later, after a lot of showings, we got the second offer, $565,000. One of the things that they didn't like is that the house had a well inside the basement. It was we call it a hand dug well. And it's basically, they dig that well back in the 50s by hand and by, tools, whatever. And it only produces 50 to 100 gallons of water. Just to give you a perspective of that, a water heater, typically hot water heater, has 40 gallons. So it only produces 20 to 30, 40 gallons more. So big mistake. I don't even know what the number is at this point. If you see a well on the basement, I will run, or I will account for actually get a credit or have the money to do a new well outside. Wells shouldn't be inside of the home. And the reason why the mold was there, it was because obviously it was flooded, but also there was water inside the well. So that produces humidity and that produces mold. So if you see a well in the basement, run. That's just my advice. So we talk about drainage issues. We're talking about water tables. And then we have the barn. So the barn, it was a 3-floor barn. It had electricity. We did some minor electricity work there. It had plumbing where in the future the new owner can connect it to the house. And we thought, man, this barn is going to be the best thing ever. That person can have gas over there. That person can have, Airbnb if they want. And we thought it was going to be great. And the barn was kind of falling apart. So we did some foundation issues. We fixed some foundation issues with our contractor that he's really good at that. And the barn was stable. We painted it, and then we finished. The first floor was a garage for a car. The second floor was like a living room. It's about 400 or 500 square feet. And then the third floor, you have 2 bedrooms. And it was great. We had the old windows, but we decided to finish it. We spent probably total $30,000 to $35,000 in that barn. And if we would have demoed the whole barn, it was going to be maybe $8,000 because it was a big barn, maybe $10,000. And now that I look back, it was not like a great selling point. I was totally wrong. And even though we were in a little bit rural area of Newtown, again, we thought it was going to be great, but that didn't justify the price of the house. So one of the big mistakes here is to, when you pull comparables, make sure that you are seeing other houses with barn and seeing if that is actually affecting the price or not. You have to know your numbers and you have to know the comparable. So looking back now, I think I would have turned it down, save that money, make it flat, make it nice, and then make the house look bigger. And maybe I would have taken 10 grand or that money and actually built the garage next to the house. That's another thing. So the other mistakes that I made, again, I hope that you're sitting here having coffee or you're just chilling in your house, because I'm going to tell you all the mistakes. The other mistakes that I made was the septic. So we inspect with a company, local company. This time I didn't use the person that I use. I use a local company. A lot of people say, yeah, you got to use your local, support local, but local is not always better. And when I say that is, this company came, they did an inspection, and they told me everything was fine. That, the tank is a little older, but it's fine. Everything is going well. It passed, everything good. One of the offers that I had, 3 out of the distribution boxes failed. Basically, a distribution box is you have the septic tank, and then the water goes through a distribution box. It looks like a box. And then after that, it goes to the fields. And then, shit goes to the field, whatever. So 3 of them failed on my second offer. Hey, real quick, I want to give you something for free. This is the same flipping calculator that I use to analyze every single deal in less than 60 seconds. No more guessing, no more spreadsheet headaches, just plug in the numbers and know instantly if the deal is worth it. The link is in the show notes. Now, back to the episode. And I will always, for now on, call my guy or call a very reputable company that have a lot to lose, because this is one of the things that affect me when I sold the house. When you're flipping houses, you got to make sure that things are going to come out. We live in Connecticut where there's a lot of old houses, but you got to make sure that you have less problems when it comes to inspections. Let's say that the house is in distress. It has a lot of problems. Your job is not to fix all of them, but to fix the ones that are necessary, to fix the one that you should fix, and to fix the one that is going to create the wow factor for your new buyers. But if you try to fix everything, you probably won't make any money, because, again, we're dealing with 100-year-old houses. So make sure that you fix majority of it. And then the things that are not fixed, you got to disclose it. Hey, the septic is in great condition. It has to be replaced in the next 5 years or 10 years, whatever. You can be honest about it. And that's better to go on the market with that mindset, because then it creates true expectations instead of getting an offer and then they find out that the house had problems. Make sure that you hire professionals. This is especially when we're talking about mechanicals, roof, siding, septics, wells, big ticket items, plumbing, the pan, electrical. Make sure that you hire professionals. Do not play with this. Another approach and another mistake that I made is I think I was not conservative with the ARV, with the after repair value. And when I say that is, I thought that this house was going to sell for $600 in the summer. Newtown is a hot market. But I missed that this house has no garages, and then I was comparing with houses that have garages. I also was comparing with the layout was a little bit tricky, and the other houses, the layout was just simple. It was a colonial, simple layout. This was a cape. We did also an addition on the second floor. One of the bedrooms, we did a dormer, and we made it larger, and I thought that was going to increase the value. But again, the square footage didn't increase, so the house was naturally I think it was 2,200 square feet. So make sure that you're conservative with the ARV. And the truth is, if I were you, I would just try to focus on, and I always say this, on houses that have less issues. Public water, public sewer. I will focus on houses that have 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 12 to 1,300 square feet. If you're listening to this podcast and you're starting this, please listen, because you might start with a complicated house and complicated layout and complicated ARV, but because you have the deal, but I don't think it's the way to start. And if you have a deal that the one that I'm telling you, like the same, make sure that you buy it at deep discount and make sure that you have a contractor that is really good and you walk with that contractor, because I think I would have saved not losing that $107,000. That's the truth. One of the biggest mistakes that flippers and landlords do is actually not doing the final walkthrough by yourself with a flashlight. Let me explain. Your contractor finishes, right? Everything is good. Everything is clean. But what I will advise is that you take a flashlight and you check every single corner. We're talking about basements, crawl space, attics, things that maybe you didn't work on it, and things that you don't think you're gonna have. Again, the first buyer backed out because I had a 2x2 mold in a freaking corner of a crawl space that I didn't see. So make sure that you get in there yourself. I wouldn't hire anybody for this, and take a flashlight and see every single corner, especially where there's wood, there's water, there's concrete, and check, because you never know. I have friends that had knob and tube in the attic, and the attic is it's a walk-up attic, and they have a knob and tube in a section, and they didn't know. And because of that, the buyer backed out. So I will say most of the deals fall through because of inspection. It's not because of the mortgage contingency. It's inspections. One of the things that I understood about this deal also is that when you're dealing with first-time home buyers and you have a complicated when I say complicated houses, means like, high-priced houses, luxurious maybe, high-end, whatever, funky layout. When you're dealing with first-time home buyers, they might not understand, and the agent might be new and do not understand that pretty much all the repairs have a solution. You just have to find out what you're going to do with it and how to negotiate and how to, if I were an agent and there was a problem and my client really wants the house, I would have tried to get a credit. I would have tried to get the seller to repair, but I would have tried. Some agents, because they think, oh, mold, but it was a 2x2. And I offer them to remediate, and I offer them I even offered to give them $5,000 credit and remediation, and they say no. They were not ready to buy. You gotta, as a flipper, you gotta understand that. Try to get offers. Try to have that conversations before you accept the offer. We have to also, the basement, we have to waterproof it, and that was like $8,000 because again, the water table was coming up, and that was very expensive. But I haven't told you one of the biggest drawbacks in this house. The biggest drawback in this house was that the water pump that we installed was gushing, was bringing water out every single minute, because the water table was so high. So the water will come up, the sump pump, it will go out, and it will fill again, and it will go out. So that is not normal. And that is something that we remediated. But as a perception of the buyer, that was very tough to swallow. Your sump pump is going to be gushing water every minute and a half, 2 minutes. Obviously, it was raining and, whatever, but that's a lot to take in. You got to tackle all those water issues before you even start doing the kitchen or the flooring. So that was my mistake. So at the end of the day, we went from 290, 300,000 purchase price, renovation, whatever, 200. And then we end up, then you have holding costs every month. It was like $5,000 between all the, taxes, insurance, hard money lender, and all that. So we went from April, and then we sold it in December. We thought it was going to sell it for $600,000. We sold it for $525,000. Long story short, we lost $107,000. And I was at Lowe's when I talked to Jose, and he gave me the final number, and we were laughing. You might say, Andres, you probably lose your mind. The thing is that I didn't. I felt relieved that I sold the house. I felt that me and Jose looked at the company as the whole year, and we did really well last year. This sucks that we lost $107,000, but when you're flipping houses, you cannot see the one that knocks you down. You have to see the whole picture. So if you did 5 flips and one knocks you down, but then you did really well in 4, you have to see that you win. Obviously, 107,000, it's a lot, it's a lot of profit, but I'm just so happy that that happened because there's no better education than you doing yourself. You doing the flips yourself. You can look at social media. Most flippers don't tell you the truth. Most flippers will tell you, oh yes, I bought at this deep discount, and they show you the process, but they don't show you how little profit they make, or they don't show you how much money they're losing, because everything is social media and everything is glamorous and fancy. But this business is not fancy. And I hope you learn from this episode, and I hope you really learn which houses to buy, what are mistakes that I made. If you're in Connecticut, let's connect. Again, let's just be a community of helping each other. Until the next one.